Good morning, students. Hope you're feeling fine. Today we're going to start with our new unit, which is Unit 8. The title of the unit is What If? Usually we know that when we use if clauses, we are talking about things and their results, events and their results. So here, today we're going to be introduced to something called wave power. So what is wave power? When it comes to wave power, most of us know that it is related to disasters, maybe it is related to nature. So can you introduce me to some of the natural disasters or natural things that happened or are occurring these days? One of these are volcanoes. As you can see, this is a picture of a volcano. Other natural disasters that could happen is like the tsunami we had in Indonesia a couple of years ago. We have, again, when we talk about other natural disasters, we have earthquakes and hurricanes, tornadoes. These all are considered natural disasters. Our natural disaster that we're going to be talking about is actually a volcano. As we know, most of us know that volcanoes every a couple of years erupt. Some of them are passive, some of them are active. The one that we have is actually an active one, and it is in the Canary Islands. Okay, so what's going to happen with us, or what's going to happen? Okay, this is something that hasn't started yet. It hasn't started, it hasn't occurred, okay? But scientists are just doing their researches and their studies to prevent a bigger disaster. So, we have this volcano. The volcano is called Cumbre Vieja. Cumbre Vieja is a volcano in the Canary Island. It erupts every a couple of years, every decades it erupts. So, but what's the difference this time? The difference this time is that a big chunk, a big piece of it's gonna fall into water. The disaster rises when it falls to water, because these are a very huge amount of hot metals, hot rocks falling into a very deep sea. So starting from there, we're gonna have something called a wave power, which is usually related to tsunamis. Okay, so now I'm gonna be reading the text slowly in order to illustrate the highlighted words and answer a couple of questions related to the topic. Okay, so this is a picture of Cumbre Vieja, a huge active volcano on La Palma, the steepest island in the world, in the Canary Island. Every few decades it erupts, and scientists are worried because the walls of the volcano are getting weaker. Scientists fear that when it erupts, an enormous chunk of the volcano could collapse and fall into the sea. If this happened, it would be a catastrophe. Why? Because it would unleash a giant wave, a tsunami, the biggest ever. Okay. So before we start, let's have a quick look at the pictures. So what do you think picture number 1 is? What do you think picture number 1 is? Number 1 is actually an island, and as you can see, so this is the part of a volcano. This is the whole. This is a part of the volcano from where it erupts. So that means we are going to talk about a certain volcano that's gonna cause maybe a disaster, that's gonna cause a problem. We have, again, when it comes to pictures, to diagrams 1 and 2, these are actually describing what will happen. So as you know, this is a volcano. As you can see, this is a volcano. It's gonna start to erupt, it's going to explode, and it is next to the sea. We know that any metals, any rocks that come out of those volcanoes are very hot. And it contains a lot of smoke. And since sea is next to it, that means we're going to have a very fast cooling for those materials. Okay, so because it is erupting, as we know, the walls of those volcanoes are getting weaker. They are not strong enough as they used to be in the past, because it is erupting every 2-3 decades. And it made the volcano a kind of weak. So the problem lies where is that this big piece of the volcano, this wall of the volcano, it is going to fall in the sea. And as I mentioned before, it is a very large quantity. It is of a very large quantity, and it is very hot. So what would happen if you splash something that is if you put something that is very hot and very big in the water? it will splash. Water will splash, but what happens? It's gonna cause us a very big wave. So this wave, this is the problem. If these waves happen, it is usually a tsunami. That means they are of different heights. They are very high, starting from around 12 to maybe 100 to 150 meters long waves. Okay, final picture, as you can see, the final diagram, you see, it is like waves, because we're talking about waves, so that means that they are going to move on. They're going to go to different parts of the world. As you can see, so here, you can see Africa, so that means it's going to be affecting Africa. It's going to be affecting Spain, it's going to be affecting, we're talking about London, UK, we're talking about America, and we are talking about South America. That means it's going to have a very wide range of destruction, okay, and it's going to damage a lot of parts. So this is the main idea that we are talking about. Now we're going to start analyzing our paragraph, which is on page 66 and from the student book, okay? So now we're going to start reading the text on page 66 from your student book, okay? This is a picture of Cumbre Vieja, a large active volcano on La Palma, the steepest island in the world, in the Canary Islands. Okay, so where is our volcano located? It is on the Canary Islands. So it is there, and as you see, it is the steepest island. Steepest island, we said it is high, so that means the edges of those mountains rise and fall very quickly. So this means it is very high. It is very high. Okay, every few decades it erupts, and scientists are worried because the walls of the volcano are getting weaker. So, as I told you when we start, this is the problem. It erupts. Usually when we say erupts, we agreed that it's gonna explode. It's gonna explode. So which of these words has anything to say with explodes? Yes. So this is the word. So when we are talking about erupt, it means that something is gonna explode, especially when we talk about volcanoes, it is gonna explode and throw out fire and different hot rocks. So, why are scientists worried? Why are scientists worried? We agree that this part of the volcano, the walls that are of the walls of the volcano are actually very weak. They are very weak. So every time it erupts, we have a bigger chance of it falling in the water. Okay? So, next, scientists fear that when it erupts, an enormous chunk of the volcano could collapse and fall into the sea. So, as we said, a great part, scientists are worried that a great chunk, okay? Chunk usually means a great piece, a large piece of something. So, where's the word? Yes, so this is the word for chunk. Chunk means a large piece of something. Okay, of the volcano is gonna collapse. We agreed. Collapse, that means it's gonna fall. Okay, it's gonna fall, it's gonna cause a disaster, it's gonna cause a lot of damage. So, where is the appropriate word from here? This is the word. So, and we agreed that collapse. So, once it collapses, once it falls, okay, it's gonna fall suddenly. So we do not actually know when it will fall, but it's gonna fall suddenly. So the correct word for collapse is to fall suddenly. Okay? Okay. So now collapse, we agreed that the great piece, it's gonna fall. And how is it gonna fall? It's gonna fall suddenly and very quickly. Okay? So what will happen next? If this happened, it would be a catastrophe. Why? Because it would unleash a great wave, a tsunami, the biggest ever recorded. Okay, so we agree that that great piece of chunk or a great piece is gonna fall suddenly and it's gonna cause a catastrophe. Okay, so it's gonna cause a disaster. And that disaster will cause a lot of damage and suffering. So the right word for catastrophe is a disaster that causes a lot of damage and suffering. So why is it considered a catastrophe? Because it would unleash a great wave. So it would unleash, it's like when you have a dog, okay, and you kept him hungry, and suddenly you open the cage, he will start looking for everything, he will destroy everything. So when we say that unleash means, what's the appropriate word from the given words? Okay, so this is the word, to cause something that has a very dangerous effect. So as we said, the wave that is going to be released, okay, it's going to have a very dangerous effect. Okay? Okay, how would it happen? So now we're going to read how would it happen. What's going to happen? Why are we going to have such a huge tsunami? Okay? The volcano is by the sea, and the water next to the volcano is about 6 kilometers deep. So it is not any water, we are talking about a water that is 6 kilometers deep. So it is approximately like from Al-Muhammadiyya school to the Applied University. So this is how deep our water is. So this is why it is such a big, so this is the first thing that makes a very big problem. Okay, let's continue reading. If the volcano collapsed, a landslide of 500 billion tons of rock would fall into the sea. Okay, so again, the other problem is other than that the sea is very deep at that part. Second thing is we're talking about 5 billion tons, not kilograms, not nothing. It is 5 billion tons of rocks that are going. They're going to be hot, they're going to be heavy, and the sea next to them is going to be 6 meters deep. So this is where the problem lies. So, a landslide. What is a landslide? We agree. A landslide, it's like the slide that we usually play with. So, what is the appropriate word for landslide? What is it? Let's have a quick look. Landslide is when rocks suddenly fall down the side of the mountain. So, this is a landslide. Okay? So, rocks are sliding up and down. Okay? So, this would create a huge tsunami about 100 meters high. So we're going to be starting. The first wave, the initial waves are going to be about 100 meters high. So these are about divided. These are about 30 stories building. Okay. So this is for the second paragraph. Okay. So next, what would happen next? So after we had the tsunami, after we had a 100-meter wave, what will happen? The wave would travel away from the Canary Island in all directions at about 800 kilometers per hour. So when we are talking about a huge wave with a very high speed, so it is even faster than a jet. So imagine what would happen. Imagine how would it hit shores. Imagine what will happen to coastlines. Imagine what will happen to people. So the other Canary Islands would immediately be covered by water. So when we talked about the Canary Islands, all the other Canary Islands that are around the volcano are immediately gonna be covered with water. So they're gonna be full of water. Okay, so that means buildings are going to be destroyed, peoples are going to die, everything that's around those islands or on those islands, it's going to be flooded and it's going to be filled with water. Okay, in less than an hour, a 90-meter wave would flood northwest Africa. So when we're talking about those people now, so it covered all the Canary Islands with water. Now it's gonna cover the northwest of Africa. So it's gonna cover the northwest of Africa with water. So what's the correct word for flood? Yes, so this is the one, to cover or fill with water. Yeah. The site of the volcano faces west, across the Antarctic Ocean, which would protect Africa and Europe a little. Okay, so that means even as we read before that it's gonna be hitting parts of Africa, okay, parts of Africa, but still because they are near, because they are behind actually the part that fell, so they won't be affected as severe as the ones that are facing the tide or the wave or the tsunami that hit those parts. Okay, so however, a 12-meter tsunami would still crash against Lisbon within 3 hours, and after 5 hours, a tidal wave would reach Britain. Okay, so we agreed. Africa is a part of it is protected, a part of it is gonna be flooded, but we are still endangered with waves of 12 meters. When we talk about 12 meters, that means these are 3-story building. That means 3-story buildings. Again, it's gonna hit Lisbon. Lisbon, we agreed, it's Spain within 3 hours. So after the collapse happens, after the tsunami is created, within 3 hours, Lisbon is gonna be flooded. Within 5 other hours, okay, another tidal wave, a very big wave, a very large wave, is gonna hit Britain. It's gonna hit UK. So, what is the correct word for a tidal wave? It is a very large moving part of the sea that destroys the coast. Okay, because we're talking about tidal waves. The wave could travel a kilometer inland and devastate towns and villages. London would be flooded. Okay, so we agree. It is a very high wave. Those waves are going to hit Spain, are going to hit Britain. And they are not going to stop at the coastline. They're not going to stop next to the beaches. No, they're going to go inland. They're going to go inside the land, destroying other cities other than the ones that are on the coast. And devastate towns and villages, because we said they are very high with a great speed. That means they're going to devastate, they're going to damage different towns and different villages. So what's the correct word for devastate? It's to destroy or damage something badly. How far would it travel? So now we agreed that it started from the Canary Island. It has already flooded the Canary Islands. It has flooded Africa. It has flooded already Spain and UK. So let's see how far would it travel. Okay, the wave would have enough energy to cross the entire Atlantic Ocean. So it is a very powerful wave, and those waves are gonna pass and go beyond the Atlantic Ocean. We know the Atlantic Ocean is very big, so that means it's gonna have to have a lot of energy. That means those waves have extreme energy, so they are very dangerous. Okay, 8 hours after the eruption, it would smash into the east coast of America. So now it has passed the Atlantic Ocean, and they're gonna smash. So it's gonna boom like that. So it's gonna smash into the east coast of America. So what's the correct word for smash? Yes, it's gonna hit something with a great force. Okay, so it would still be about 30 meters high. So they are still very high, they are still very fast, even after they hit America. Where would they go? Boston would be hit first, followed by New York, then the coast down to Miami. So again, these are cities on the coastline, states on the coastline of America. So they are going to be hit with extremely fast and extremely high waves. Okay, the waves could create havoc in the Caribbean and Brazil too. So that means it's not going to stop at North America. It's going to continue and destroy and cause a lot of problems for the Caribbean islands and Brazil, which are parts of South America. Okay, so what's the appropriate word for havoc? Okay, so havoc is actually a situation where there is a lot of confusion and damage. it would travel for several kilometers inland because of the low coastlines. Okay, so it's not just gonna stop at the Caribbean and Brazil. No, it's gonna go inland. So it's gonna hit those cities that are not near the sea. Okay, it would flatten everything and kill thousands of people. We agree. Flatten, this is something round. You know, a ball is round. Actually, flatten, it's like the surface of our board. This is flatten. So what's the correct word for flatten? Yes, to make something flat. It doesn't have any curves, and this is flat. It's a flat surface. What can we do about it? As we agreed, it is a natural disaster, and when it comes to natural disasters, we actually as people cannot do nothing except buy some time. So what are scientists doing now? They are buying us time in case this thing happens, and this is actually the worst scenario. So what could happen? We don't know. Will it happen in these days? No, it's actually gonna take some more decades until we reach such a dangerous situation. Okay, so nothing much it seems. So we agreed that we as people, we cannot stand against nature. So we cannot do anything. The scientists believe that it is not a question of if, but when. So we agreed. They are worried that when it will happen because they want us to buy time. Okay, the volcano will collapse at some time in the future, but it would be hundreds or thousands of years from now. So, as we said, nobody knows the appropriate time. Nobody knows when it will happen. Maybe 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 of years from now. Furthermore, extra, if only part of the volcano plunged into the sea, the tsunami would be much smaller. So we agreed. The big chunk is going to cause a huge tsunami. But if a small piece plunges, falls, goes into the sea, the tsunami at that time would be smaller. So what's the correct word for plunge? What's the correct word? Yes, to fall quickly from a high place. So if it plunges, if it falls quickly from a high place, it would cause a smaller tsunami. Okay? Scientists want to put better equipment on Compra Vieja so that they can predict the volcano's eruption in the future and give us an early warning of possible problems. So, scientists, what are they trying to do? They are trying to give us better equipment, better machines, better ways to measure and to know when is it going to erupt. Okay, and again we said it is to buy us time, it is to warn us, it is to tell us that you have to find somewhere safe in case something happens. So what is the warning? So what's the correct word for warning? It is to something telling people about possible dangers. So it is when we try to tell people about possible dangers. Although nobody could stop the tsunami, at least the authorities could then evacuate the towns and cities that would be in danger and save thousands of lives. So, as we agreed, scientists want to buy us time in order to make people leave their houses, leave the place that they are living in it in order to save their lives. So what's the correct word for evacuate? So it is to move people from a place because it isn't safe. So this is all for our paragraph that was on page 66. For any questions, anything, you can just ask me when you come back, and I hope that you come back safely. Let's go for a quick summary. Let's go for a quick summary to make sure that everything has been understood. Okay, we agree that we have a volcano. That volcano will erupt eventually at a certain time in the future. Okay, but where is the problem? The problem lies in that every time it erupts, its walls are getting weaker and weaker. Okay, so they could fall in the sea. When they fall in the sea, they're gonna cause a very big wave. That wave, it's not gonna affect the Caribbean islands only, it's gonna affect all the world around it, starting from Africa to Spain to the UK to North America and South America. What our scientists actually trying to tell us in this case is that we as humans cannot stand against nature, but we can minimize the damages that we have. So that's why they are giving us those researches about such volcanoes. Okay. So now we're going to start with the activities on page 67. Our first activity is going to be a multiple choice activity. Okay, let's go with number 1. A tsunami would be caused by a volcano eruption, a large rock, or a flood. We agreed when we went back to the text, we had a volcano, it's gonna erupt, okay, and a big chunk or a big piece is gonna fall into the sea. So, what is the correct answer? The correct answer is actually A, a volcano eruption. Okay, it's letter A. Number 2, the side of the volcanoes that could fall. We agree that the sides, because the walls of the volcanoes are weak, they're going to fall. So, they face Africa and Europe. Are they opposite Africa and Europe? Or would protect the other Canary Islands? Are they going to be protected and not flooded? Or faces America, that means they are opposite America. When we went back to the text, what did they say? That they said they faced west across the Atlantic Ocean. That means, which is the country that they are facing? It is America. And we said that America, it's going to be they're going to have great damages and a lot of destructions on their different states. Okay, question number 3. The tsunami would hit Boston before London, affect towns that are not on the coast. Affect towns that are not on the coast, that means it is inland, okay? Be 12 meters high when it hit New York. So, what is special about the tsunami? We agreed that most of the cities that we mentioned are on the coastline, and we had a problem that they're going to reach inland. So, which is the correct answer? It is number 4, scientists. So, what are our scientists trying to do? Are sure an eruption will happen in the next 100 years? Did they mention that we have an eruption within 100 years? What to tell people? Wanted to tell people what is going on. So, do they want people to know about such a disaster that's coming, or are not sure if there will be an eruption? Did they mention that they are not sure? Are they doing those studies because they are not sure? I don't think so. So the correct answer would be B. Okay. Number 5, scientists want to use better equipment so why do they want to put more modern machines, more modern equipment and things to measure when our volcano is going to erupt? Because the tsunami will be smaller. So if they put the equipment, will the tsunami be smaller? Can we have an effect on nature? They can prevent an eruption. Okay, can they prevent the eruption if they put more equipment, more modern things? I don't think so. They can help people avoid the disaster. Will they help us avoid the disaster? Yes, we agree. Why? Because the important thing for us is to evacuate those people away from those parts and away from those lands that are endangered. So the correct answer is C. So we're going to start understanding ideas, which is the second activity that I need from page 67. Okay? Answer the questions, look at the text, and use your own words and ideas. Okay, number 1. If Cobra Vieja erupts, where would the tsunami travel to? We agreed. We already got it from the text. It is gonna hit starting with the Canary Islands. After the Canary Islands, it's gonna go toward Africa. After Africa, it's gonna hit Spain. After Spain, it's gonna go to the UK and then travel across the Atlantic Ocean and reach North America and South America. Okay, these are all the places that actually were mentioned within the paragraph. Okay, so question 2. What damage do you think a tsunami would cause to a city? We agree that once it hits a city, okay, it's gonna cause a lot of problems. One of these, it's gonna destroy the city as a whole, starting from buildings, houses, malls, different, okay, cars are gonna be flooded with water, okay, electricity, we're gonna have a lot of electricity problems, telephone lines again they are gonna have problems, and a lot of other different parts from the city can be destroyed. Okay, schools, animals would be killed, people would be killed, and so on. So if we're gonna start talking, it's gonna take a lot of time when we talk about destructions. Okay, so question number 3. What do you think people would do if scientists told them that a tsunami was coming? Okay, so if we had a time and our scientists told us that a tsunami is going to happen, what's the first thing you're going to do? Okay, the first thing, and because we are talking about approximately from 3 to 5 hours, okay, taking a plane away from the place that you live wouldn't be a very good choice because you wouldn't have time to get your tickets. Okay, so one of the main things that you can actually do is to go on a highland. Okay, to go find a highland in which it is higher than the length of the tsunami, and you would be safe at that part. Again, something else that you can do, because we're talking that when we talk about tsunamis, they hit cities on the coast. So always try to find out a city that is inland and the waves won't be hitting them. Okay, so this is all for question of understanding ideas. Okay. So now we're gonna start extend, which activity that's about word building, which is on page 68. Okay, we're gonna go just a quick review for what is a verb, what is a noun, and what is an adjective. As we agree, a verb, it's usually one of the main parts of a sentence, and it tells us what people are doing or what things are being done. Okay, when it comes to nouns, nouns actually are words in which we refer to places, plants, animals, the name of cities, and so on. When we talk about adjectives, adjectives are words that usually modify, give us extra information about the noun that we are talking about. Okay, so in this case, we want to derive from our noun the verb of that noun and the adjective. Okay, so as you can see, most of the words that you see here are we've used the suffix tion, shen. Okay, the suffix. So what shall we do? What shall we do? Let's try just a small trick. Okay, it won't work every time. Okay, but it can make it easier for you to memorize the verb, noun, and adjective of these words. Okay, so first one is action. Okay, so let's try to take it off. If we took, it's gonna be act. So is it acceptable? Yes, it's acceptable. So this is for the verb. Let's do the next one, create. Okay, creation. We had create, we had to add an E. Okay, it is a silent E, but again it worked. When we talk about destruction, let's see, destruction. Destruct, is it a verb? No, the verb from it is destroy. Okay, so this time it didn't work. So what do you have to do? You have to memorize it. Okay, so next one is devastation. Again, let's see devastation. If we take out the suffix, devastate, is it a verb? Yes, it is a verb. So it worked out this time perfectly. Information, if we're gonna go back to the verb, let's try to take out the suffix, inform, do some modifications. Okay, inform, because we do not put the A, there's no need. We know the word inform is already a verb, so it is done. When we have for prediction, again, let's take out the T-I-O-N, so it is predict. So everything is okay. And the final one is protection. Let's again take out the suffix, protect, and it is done. Okay, so now we're going to start with the adjectives. Okay, in this case, when we want to change a noun, okay, into an adjective, we're going to add the suffix IVE. Okay, so we're going to start. Let's go back to the main one, the main verb, okay, since we've got all the verbs. So act, active. Is it correct? Yes, it's correct. It's an active. Create. Let's see, does it work? Creative. Okay, it is okay, acceptable. Where did the E go? I had to take it out because if I put it, I will have to read it and it would be unacceptable. Next one is devastate. Okay, so let's see, devastate. Will it work out? Devastative. No, it's not very acceptable. It's not the use. So the correct one is devastating or devastated. Okay, devastated. So again, the rule doesn't work here. So what you have to do, you have to memorize the words. Okay, so when we have about inform, the next verb is inform. Let's see, is informative a word? Yes, it is a word. It is an adjective. Next one is predict. Predictive. Okay. It does it. Okay. So it works. Predictive. It works. Another adjective that it can be used is predictable. Okay, predictable. Final one is protect. And does it work for us when it comes to protective? Yes, it works. So this is exercise number 4 from page 68. Okay, so actually when we go back to all the verbs that are inside our blue box, they're going to be used with water. Okay, so there are different ways of supplying things or the ground, plants, people, or anything with water. Okay, so now we're going to complete the sentences using the verbs in the box. Okay, first one is irrigate. Irrigate is actually when you supply the fields, the ground with water. Okay, dribble, it's dribble, so that small drops of water that they are coming down. Okay, splash, it's like when water comes out, when you throw a stone, okay, in the water usually splashes and it comes out and splashes on you. Okay, so it's like the sponge. If you put a sponge inside a cup of water, okay, and you take it out, it's full of water, so this is when we say that it has been soaked. Okay, water here is the verb. Water means to give a liquid, okay, or water to a plant, okay, or to a plant. Spill is actually when you have your cup of coffee, your cup of milk, okay, and suddenly you trim and it is spilled, so it goes out of the cup and cause a little mess. Okay, so next is drip. Drip is actually when drops fall, but in an unsteady way. That means now it's one drop, after 2 seconds is another drop, after 3 to 5 seconds is another drop. Okay, dribble, okay, it's again when we talk about water falling in drops, but it is more steady. Okay, so they are in a more organized way. And square, the clearest way to talk about square is like a fountain. Okay, so it starts suddenly. Okay, let's start with number 1. Okay, please soak your dirty football kit in hot water before putting it in the washing machine. Soak, we agree that soak is that when you put your clothes, your sponge, anything inside the water and it comes out full of water. Okay? Number 2. That glass of water is very full, don't dash it. So what's the appropriate word? Because it's full of water, okay? So you are not supposed what to do to, yes, to spill it. Okay, you don't want any water or any liquid from that water glass to go out. Number 3. We need water to dash the dry fields so we can grow food. Okay, so we agree. What is the thing that what is the correct verb when we say that we want to supply a field with water? Yes, it is irrigate. Number 4. I've turned off the tap, but water continues to dash from it. Can you repair it? So you know what's a tap? A tap is where you get your water supplies. Okay, so we said when water, and we're talking about things, and it is the water is falling, so it is to drip. It is to drip. Number 5. Children, don't dash when you're in the bath. I don't want water all over the bathroom floor. And this is what your mom always tells you when you have a bath. So you have to stop what? To not splash. Okay, number 6. You only need to dash this plant once a week. So what do? We water plants. Okay. Number 7. She accidentally squeezed the cartoon and the juice dashed out all over the table. We agree that once you push a cartoon of juice, what will happen? It will go out like a mountain. What's the correct word for that? It is squirted. Yes. So it is squirted. Okay. Finally, 8. You should be careful when you're drinking milk. Look, you dash milk down your top. So some drops have fell on your top. So what's the correct word? It's dribble. You've dribbled. Okay, milk down your top. So this is all for this activity. So now, before we start our grammar, which is regarding Unit 8, okay, the second conditional, I'm going to have a quick review regarding past simple. Why do I need it? Because it is going to be a part of the second conditional. So for me, you have to know the most important thing is I'm going to be just discussing the affirmative and the negative form of the verb. I'm not going to go toward interrogative form. Neither I will be discussing nor uses nor the keywords. Okay, so I just need the structure from you. Okay, so the first thing we must know is that when we talk about an affirmative structure, we start with the subject, verb to, and the complement. Okay, if we're talking about the negative structure, we again structure it using a subject, did not, or you could just use the abbreviation for that, plus verb base plus the complement. Okay, so let's have a quick look at some examples. Okay, number 1, she worked at MSK last year. Okay, so this is the affirmative form, we add ed. Okay, so one of the things is that you have to know if we have, as you can see, we have different types of verbs. Okay, some of them, when we form them, some of them we're going to be adding ed. Other forms, we're going to be changing the verb entirely. Other things we're going to be changing slight changes for the verb. Okay, so let's have again a quick look at sentence number 1. Okay, she worked at MSK last year. This is the affirmative. This is the affirmative form of the sentence. Okay, in this case the verb is work. Okay, and work is a regular verb. We're going to just add an ed. Okay, so next one is the negative form of the same sentence. Okay, so as we agreed that not it limps. It cannot stand alone. So what do? We add a helping verb. What's the helping verb for past simple? It's the verb to do, and it's a past simple form, which is did. Okay, so what do? We have the subject, we have didn't, and we go back to the base form of the verb. Okay, so again, sentence number 3, they worked at MSK last year. It's they. So again, regardless, whatever your subject is, whether it's a singular subject when we talk about he, she, it, or anything that refers to them, like Ahmed, Mona, if we're talking about a cat, a table, okay? It doesn't matter, okay? You just put the verb in its second form, which is the verb to, adding ed, changing the form, or just having a slight changes before adding the ed, okay? So, for the sentence number 3, she went to MSK last year. Again, went, okay? When we have the negative form of it, again, we add she and didn't, and we go back to its base form. Please pay attention that we go back to the base form, because most of our students have the same mistake. They forget that they have to go back to the base form. You already gave the sentence to the helping verb, so you don't have to repeat yourself and do it again, okay? And final sentence is that she studied at MSK last year. Again, the negative is she didn't study. And remember that usually words that end with Y and CVC, which are consonant, vowel, consonant, you actually take out the E, take out the Y and change it into an I. Okay, so this is a quick review that we needed from the past simple. So now we're going to start with our top topic, which is the second conditional. It is a part of your student book on page 69. Okay. So second conditional. Previously we already took 0 conditionals, which we used for facts. We took first conditional, in which we talked about events and their results in the present. So now we're going to be introduced to the second conditional. We use it to talk about unreal imaginary situation. That means when we use this conditional, the thing is unreal. It is imaginary. It will not happen. Okay? But we have to know how to use it, and you have to know something is that when we use it with I, we use I will. How do we structure a second conditional? We structure a second conditional using if, subject, verb to, which is the past simple, plus a complement, okay? And the second part, which is the main part, we started with the subject, would, plus the verb in its base form. And always remember that after would, it has to be the base form. You do not add ed, you do not add s, you do not add anything. You just go as the verb is within the brackets. And a complement if it is a transitive or intransitive verb, and it depends. Okay, let's have a look at the first one. If I had $1 billion, I would buy a castle. You would buy a very big house. So this is actually unreal. This is imaginary. And how do we structure it? We started with if. This is our subject. This is the verb, which is verb to. $1 billion, this is the complement. I would buy. Again, we have would. After that, we have the base form and a castle. Okay? Again, we've repeated the same sentence again because, as you know, that if the clause and the main clause, they can be interchangeable. That means you can change their places and they still would give the same meaning. Okay? So, I would buy a castle if I had $1 billion. Okay? The only difference is when you start with if, don't forget the comma. Please don't forget the comma. Okay, let's have a quick look at the second sentence. If I live in the countryside, okay, I would have a horse. Again, we started with if. Lived is the verb to from live. Okay, in the countryside is our complement. I would have a horse. Again, I is the subject, would is our second part of the clause, and have is followed by, it's the base form of the verb to have, because we have would before it. So a horse is the complement. Again, these two are interchangeable. I would have a horse if I lived in the countryside. Okay, that's it. Okay, if the if is in the middle, there is no comma. If the if starts is in the beginning, we have to put a comma. Okay, so before we stop, okay, this is the worksheet that I need you to do it, which is worksheet number 7 from our booklet. Please make sure that you do your homework, and again go back to your student's book page 69, okay, for you to do the necessary activities. Okay, and so this is all for this week. I hope you have a safe holiday, and hope I will see you again after the vacation that we had. Have a nice time.